The next-gen consoles have been the talk of the town since they released. I've had my hands on one since November, but I know there's many people still out there trying to get their hands on one. So with almost 4 months of the PS5 and over 100 hours played, how well does the console stand out? And is it really a must-have on your setup? Well, my name is Kwesi and today we're going to talk about the PS5. And before we start, if you really do enjoy my content, make sure you hit that subscribe button because it really does help me out. And so without further ado, let's jump into this review. Okay, so the first thing I want to discuss is the availability of the console and how hard it is to get one. So if you tried getting one around release day, you probably remember how hard it was to beat all the bots and the scalpers. Many websites made it almost impossible to beat all the bots due to the lack of queues and security features. The only place that had some sort of countermeasure was PlayStation Direct, which gave user queue times to try to buy the console. Okay, so this is how it was around release. So has the situation changed? Well, not really. It's basically the same. I stopped following all the PS5 Twitter pages because obviously I already have one. So personally, I haven't done any PS5 shopping, but from testimonies from friends and families, the PS5 literally still sells out in a matter of seconds. So yeah, scalpers are still at it, and it's to a point I honestly believe there's more PS5s sitting on people's shelves than there are people playing them. If you look on eBay and other websites, you'll see PS5s going for over $1,000. So yeah, I honestly think it's gonna take a while before the average person get their hands on a console for retail price. Okay, now let's talk about the console itself. So the user interface is pretty sleek and simple. The only thing I'm still getting used to is that when you press the home button while playing a game, it takes you to this mini page instead of the home screen. In order to go to the home screen, you need to hold the home button. This is weird because with the PS4, these controls were the exact opposite, so my brain is still trying to get used to it. Also, party chat is kind of wonky in my opinion. Switching from game chat to party chat takes a bit too long. You have to jump to all these types of loops just to do it, while with the PS4, you simply hold the home button and press switch. These are just nitpicks with the UI. I don't think Sony will ever address these issues, but if they did, it would be nice. Next, let's talk about the performance. So when Sony was bragging about how the load times on the console felt next gen, they weren't lying. Even to this day, the load times still surprise me. Initially, I thought as time goes by and I start downloading more and more games, I would see an increase of the load times, but that has not yet happened. However, I do have a problem with one game, which is NBA 2K21. For some odd reason, whenever I boot the game, sometimes it could take a whole lot longer than usual. But I think that has to do with the game itself and not the console. Now the PS5 also did promise a steady 60 FPS, but from my experience, this can sometimes vary. I've noticed so much more frame drops while playing certain games. It's not as bad as a PS4, but it is noticeable. Whenever a lot of particles are flying around the screen, you can clearly tell the PS5 can't really render it all. This is especially telling with games that allow you to play with ray tracing on. If this is the case, then frames would be all over the place. Now on the topic about games, I hate to say it, but there isn't a whole lot, and this is where the decision of getting the console might weigh the biggest. Currently, there's a few PS5 exclusive titles like Godfall, Demon's Souls, and Astro's Playroom, but however, majority of the other games for the console can still be played on the PS4. I say this because I think this is the main argument point for why some people claim the PS5 isn't worth the money right now. I had to really ask myself, am I really gonna buy a $500 console just to play Nier Automata for the 15th time, or should I just do that on my PS4? What I will say is that coming from someone who owns the original PS4 and not the Pro, when you boot PS4 games on a PS5, the frame rates do get an upgrade from what it looks like. Genshin Impact on my PS5 versus my PS4 runs a whole lot better. Now some games are getting PS5 exclusive updates like God of War, where they completely revamp the graphics to better utilize the PlayStation 5's hardware. But like I stated before, do you really want to play PS4 games on a $500 console? Most people will say no. Now there are PS5 exclusive games planning to be released this year like Ratchet & Clank, but due to the pandemic, a lot of games planned to be released this year have been delayed, so who knows when we can really start seeing games roll out for the PS5. However, I will leave a link in the description with a list of planned games for 2021, so if you see a game you might like, hopefully it helps you make your decision better. Now before we end this mini 3-month review, I want to talk about some other things. So first, let's talk about the controller. Personally, I love it, and I honestly think it's one of Sony's best controllers aesthetically and mechanically. However, it does have its problems. I know haptic feedback is a huge thing, but sometimes it can be really annoying depending on what game you're playing. So sometimes I just turn it off completely. An example is NBA 2K21. For some odd reason, during gameplay, the haptic feedback will just go crazy, and I wouldn't even be doing anything with my player. This is kind of annoying because it happens a lot and it's very consistent. Also, there's been reports of controller drag where the right analog stick will just begin to move on its own. I haven't had this problem personally, but I've seen footage of it and I can tell it's a real pain in the ass to deal with. Now the console itself is really sleek, but it can collect fingerprints and dust pretty damn quickly. It's also huge, but I do like the fact that you can put it vertically so it doesn't take up too much space on my desk. It's also pretty damn quiet, sometimes. At least compared to the PS4's jet engine. However, I think this is because the console is still pretty new. I'm thinking like a year or two, we're gonna see how loud the console really is. But I will say the console does make a lot of noise when you insert a disc, but it does stop pretty quickly. Okay, so this is the end of the video where I answer the question, is the PS5 worth it? And I'll start by saying not yet. For me, when it comes down to a console, it's really about the games. And right now, the PS5 doesn't really have that many. On top of that, going through the hassle of getting your hands on the console isn't worth it just to play Fortnite at 60 FPS. And it's certainly not worth paying for the console at a scalper's price. However, the performance, the controller, and the experience of the PS5 is something to take into consideration. The console's really nice, and if you were like me and you had the original PS4, this upgrade just feels amazing. But if you do have the PS4 Pro, you might want to wait a little longer on getting your PS5. But at the same time, if you feel like you have to get an upgrade and you really want to experience 60 frames per second, then yes, you can get a PS5, but just keep in mind, getting it might be a little hard due to all the scalping and all the bots that are buying up the PS5. And also, if you have the money, you could possibly buy it from a scalper, but I also wouldn't recommend that. Okay, so that's gonna do it for the video. Do any of you guys have a PS5? If so, what has your experience been and how did you get yours? I would love to know in the comment section down below. Also, like I said earlier in the video, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, it does really help out my channel. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Anyways, my name is Quasi, and this was just the game.